Hi, my name is Bruce Bolger, and I'm founder of the Enterprise Engagement Alliance, an outreach group that promotes the formal implementation of people management in organizations across the enterprise, and our Brand Media Coalition, which focuses more specifically on the use of brands and tangible rewards and total reward strategies. And we're here today for an hour-long, in-depth discussion with people from all areas of business on the concept of, is there a time for a Got People campaign in this industry? Has anybody ever heard of the incentive recognition and rewards industry? And is it time for there to be a campaign to promote the importance, expertise in the areas of process design and measurement? And we have perspectives, and I'll introduce you to each person as we go, from the outside, from marketing, from people analytics, from PR, from research and education, and if Darwin joins us, compensation. And then we're going to have industry perspectives from people from all areas of the trade. So thank you very much, folks, for joining us today. Just always like to thank our EEA sponsors. These are leading engagement companies in all areas of business. Thank you very much. And also our BMC sponsors. These are leading brands that are behind promoting, serious program design, best practices in the use of brands. So I'm going to now stop to share. And I'm going to start with you, Meryl. You're been in marketing for more years than I'm sure you or I want to admit, and you've been in the center of marketing in New York City, the marketing capital of the world. Do you think most people know that there's a $90 billion business that focuses on helping companies engage customers and employees and all channel partners and whatnot in a formal way through tangible rewards?
I don't think there's one thing people think of when they think of this industry. And I think that's where the timing is perfect to launch a campaign where it brings it all together for, to really understand what's going on behind this industry. As Bruce and I have spoken a few times with Ira as well, who's not here, who's not on the panel, about, stakeholder capitalism, conscious capitalism, IRR, all these things working together to make people more recognized for who they are and what they contribute and where the value is. So I think having something that could be a standalone kind of approach, a campaign, that really kind of says it in one line, so that everybody knows what it is would definitely enhance what we're doing here.
So it's a messaging issue, but it's also getting to the right people, right? Who do you think has to be reached? What types of audiences have to be reached with this message, Meryl?
Well, I think the messaging has to be very simple, very quick, and very understandable, so that there are no questions. And that's not a small undertaking, right? I mean, we all know great companies with great, we'll call them slogans, right? So that's part of the challenge. And then I think most companies today want to engage. So I think the universe is pretty large in the corporate sector. And it looks like, and I'm new to this, so please, I'm so pleased to be included, but the sponsors that are included, these are all fantastic companies with tremendous reach who could really help amplify the messaging that, that is decided, that has come up, that we create, let's say. So I think it's most companies, large and small, who need to have this message, would like to.
Let me ask you this, Meryl, and you can be honest, you probably had never heard that there was really like a Got Milk campaign, that there was a dairy industry. Did you ever really, and this isn't a test, honestly, did you know that there was an industry around all of this, a formal industry with trade associations and whatnot?
Well, not really. I mean, having been in the marketing and promotion and publicity business for 30 years, I mean, I had different opportunities to sort of be, interact with the industry, but I didn't realize it was as large as it is. I would say yes, I did not.
Yeah. And again, that's what's sort of so interesting here. So Stephen, thank you very much. And Meryl, if you have to
Pleasure.
peel off, we understand it, but you'll send your recording if you do, or if you do stay on, please feel free to chime in with any thoughts. Stephen, you're with the Association of National Advertisers. You folks have, I've looked at your membership list. It is the blue chip of blue chip. And these are the CMOs of 1,000 leading companies, all the major ad agencies. Honestly, when I called you, had you ever heard of that there was a formal industry that had associations, trade shows, and whatnot related to this? And again, I don't mean to embarrass you.
No, and and thank you for having us, for having me here today. And to just to your point, yeah, we have about 1,000 client-side companies representing 20,000 different brands, about 50,000 individual members, and the organization represents over $400 billion in advertising and marketing spend across the entire advertising and marketing industry. So big company. And it's interesting because since we spoke, I did a little bit more investigation into it. I personally had no idea that this industry existed or was as big as it is. Would I be surprised that there's a trade association for anything out there? I'm sure there's a trade association for all kinds of things. But I actually went back and looked because we published a ton of content for our members. And I did a keyword search on incentives. I wanted to see what came up in the past because we keep our content available for about 6 years. In 2019, in November, we did something on incentives. And in 2018, there was another piece. And those are the only things I could find in the 5 or 6 years that even talked about beyond just things like executive compensation or agency compensation, where this even scratched our radar surface. So clearly it's relatively unknown to me, but also something that the ANA hasn't really, prioritized.
Well, Stephen, if anybody looked at your LinkedIn market, you are a classic successful young executive with an extensive background. No, you're a humble guy.
Thank you.
And if you can afford to live in the New York area, that says it all. The fact is you'd never heard of this industry really, and it's just common situation. So one other question about that. We understand this is a $90 billion business, and a lot of these brands that are members, like 1-800-Flowers, you saw our sponsors, Bulova, Citizen, they're all members of your organization.
Sure.
And yet I suspect that many of your members don't even know that they have incentive divisions. Would you guess that might, you don't know for sure, but or very familiar with it? I mean, because it never comes up.
Some of the companies you mentioned, like 1-800-Flowers, I'm sure that they know they have an incentive division. Some of the other companies, I mean, Procter and Gamble, General Motors, who knows? What's interesting is, as an organization, we really focus on something we call our growth agenda, and that's something that's been prioritized by all of our members and the CMO Growth Council. And that's really where we focus what, as an organization, we're honing in on. And so I think my advice to anybody trying to get the ANA's attention would be to, as I think we discussed offline, see where those applicable areas are, where you can tie into the areas where the ANA is already has initiatives and things moving forward. So areas like, brand purpose, talent and leadership, DE&I, there are areas that as an organization we're focused on, and then come in that way. Because I think to crack into that list of priorities might be difficult if you just come in and say, hey, we're the incentive industry.
So let me ask you quickly, what are the types of, when like the Radio Advertising Bureau wants to really get across the story of why radio is still important? What could an industry like this do? What types of ways can you educate your marketplace? Can an industry educate its marketplace through you guys?
So we have a variety of partnership partnerships, I guess, that we put in place. Radio Advertising Bureau being one. We have one with TVB, which is the local spot TV organization, a few others, and it's primarily through education and content. So these partners have the ability to publish content that we promote to our members, the ability to participate in various events that we do across the year, speaking opportunities, host webinars. So essentially, we provide our partners with a way to engage with the membership. And I think, for something like this, that's kind of off the radar, it's kind of fertile ground to say, hey, did you know this exists? Do you know the size of this industry? And to provide that educational opportunity, again, that we promote, to the 50,000 members that go through our content, use our resources every day, would probably be the best way to kind of get their attention. and slowly tie that into and work your way up to making it a priority for the organization overall.
And then, of course, membership, actually being on committees. And coincidentally, one of our panelists, who I think that's Lincoln Smith. I believe, Lincoln, you can tell us later, I think you're a finalist for an award on channel engagement program. So funny coincidence that somebody in our audience here is already familiar with you guys. Well, anyway, thank you very much, Stephen, for your perspective. And again, you're free to sign off if you want or stand by, but either way, I'll send you a link to this and an overview. So moving on, Darwin, you're in compensation and you've been a very busy man. Darwin is CEO and founder of TM Evolution, an EEA member, one of our preferred vendors. He's an expert in also employee stock ownership programs. Darwin, had you ever heard, even though you're in total rewards and incentives, rewards and recognition, I mean, you're in compensation, did you know that there was a formal industry that actually has experts and formal practices in this space before you met me?
No, I didn't know there was actually a formal industry. I've seen it. Obviously, when you go into compensation programs, you can see that there's vendors out there that have things that you can look at. But all of my clients and all the clients that I've worked with, and I've worked with a lot of clients, they come to me with total rewards needs, and it's all about base, bonus, and equity. Almost never about rewards and recognition. So they fail to even see that. And so in my opinion, I didn't see that there was an industry because it just isn't something that people push for. Now, I've always tried to work my clients into the idea that if you combine what would traditionally called compensation, if you combine compensation with rewards and recognition, you're going to get bigger impact for your dollar. So you should probably look at this and understand it. But I didn't have an idea that the industry was out there, and it wasn't that it was that large, and that they had, they formalized the process.
And let me ask you this. So what message, again, you're not a marketer, but you are a compensation expert that's working every single day. And I know you've been very busy, by the way, folks. Darwin has been, just as a PR, I mean, not as a PR, as a sort of a survey thing, compensation is red hot right now because of the whole great resignation. But in this red hotness, these compensation folks, they aren't coming to you and saying, gee, how can we make these programs bring us new ideas? And you wouldn't even know where to go to get those tools, probably, if you didn't know me, I would imagine.
Right. So I have to reach out to you to give an understanding of where I can find those tools. But it is the message that I give them constantly. And I tell them, we need to look at your rewards programs as well as your compensation programs. They need to be in lockstep so that you get the best impact for your dollar. Because right now, the problem is people are trying to chase dollars. And for most organizations, that is really never going to work for them. They're either too small or they're just not in the right industry to be chasing that kind of money. What they need some recognition programs that help their employees become engaged and help them to learn and understand that the employer actually is working with them. I mean, you still have to pay people properly. You have to have your compensation set correctly. But in order to get the impact, you absolutely have to look at the rewards and recognition programs that you have and have some decent opportunities in place for them. So it is an issue with my clients that they come to me with a specific idea. And so then I have to spend a lot of time telling them and informing them about the other options that are out there and the ways that they can use these other options in order to make better decisions about their compensation programs.
So the messaging then of this industry is obviously giving people proof or evidence that how their programs can help enhance results.
Absolutely. We need to have more of that proof that shows the synergies between those. I mean, it's really easy. People really understand the fact that you have to compensate people correctly. I mean, that's understandable. But for those organizations that have never used any type of rewards or recognition programs, or that their programs were terrible, they don't know that it can be good and it can actually work really well for them. And the other thing that they don't really do is they don't analyze the results. So they're just put things in place and walk away. They actually need to not only put the programs in place, but then they need to analyze, are they getting the outcomes that they desire for this? I was just on a conversation with a client where they created a rewards program or an award program where they paid people to come aboard. So they got this reward program for people to sign on. But the people come on and sign on, and in a week later they leave, and they never get the money back, and they never even thought about it. And it's like, well, what was the point of your program? Did you have a point to your program? And did you do any analysis to see if that was useful or not? And sometimes they don't.
No, a lot of times. Well, Darwin, thank you so much for this terrific, and because again, if people knew how many years you've been at this, again, you're just a great person to have on this. Thank you so much. Tyrone Smith is a great example. I don't know whether you're officially a millennial, but I did want to we have a lot of older people here, Tyrone, because I wanted to get the perspective of people who've been in, from Merrill Moss, of Merrill Moss marketing, to not really know our field, or Darwin for that matter, people or Stephen from that matter, that's just really significant. But you're interesting because you're, much younger, Tyrone. You're a Harvard grad. He's, by the way, he's a humble guy. He does not brag, but I believe he's been enlisted on the top 100 in HR recently by some major magazine. So Tyrone, had you ever really, before we had spoken about this, had you really knew that there was an industry of experts that actually can show you ROI on tangible reward systems?
Great question. Not at all. And thanks for having us. I've never heard of that there was an industry, but, may have seen one or two vendors in the space. But as you think about the employee experience and what's meaningful to the employer around recognition, how that might fuel innovation, and also how it might motivate employees to do more, is definitely something that should be integrated as a part of the people strategy in organizations to fuel some of those things that employees are wanting to see, especially as we're relearning the environment of what the future of work looks like from the work experience of the individual.
So for instance, again, so when you were at Harvard, you might have had one class that talked about strategy or stakeholder management, stakeholder theory, maybe one class on, that talked about ESG. But did you ever get formal training, in that whole, in a strategic approach to people management across the enterprise, and as prestigious a school as Harvard?
Never in my educational experience I've had formal training in this space. A lot of it just been through literature or readings of publications, but never formal training.
And in your work as head of analytics, what do you see? Do you see a correlation between properly designed recognition and reward programs in your research and your reading and outcomes? Or do you think these are just bright, shiny objects? Or do you think, what are your thoughts based on your analytics background?
Absolutely. There's definitely a strong correlation here as it relates to employee engagement and really helping to maintain as it relates to that strong company culture. And I think a lot of people in analytics functions and of my peers are seeing this trend and theme in the industry, where there's more emphasis being placed on the employee experience and work experience. And part of that is engagement. Part of it is flexibility and autonomy, and ensuring employees are, having that critical motivation which ultimately helps foster culture and loyalty, and inevitably boost performance, as well as increase potential retention rates. One thing I want to call out too, recently, I know Forbes last year published some survey on this, on research that they conducted by Work Institute, which indicated 87% of employees reported a high level of inclusion for companies that they were being recognized at. But what the other factor was that 23%, which is 1/4 of nearly, reported that they weren't recognized at all, which was interesting in the data point there.
Yeah, well, that's very common because most companies have an ad hoc approach to it. They're not strategic. I think we could say that people management is pretty much where quality management was in the 1990s, just beginning to move from ad hoc to strategic. Well, Tyrone, thank you very much. So it sounds to me, your message to this industry, come to us with data, come give me ammunition, give me data. Any thoughts on what that message is? I know you're not a marketer, but Merrill said, what's that key thing? Performance? Any thoughts?
Absolutely. I think the key themes here is, ultimately it'll help boost engagement, productivity levels, foster a culture of loyalty, as well as potentially reduce retention rates when employees feel valued and welcome. And it's a great tie-in to culture and inclusion and belonging, as well as you're thinking about your people programs and strategy.
Well, thank you very much. And interestingly, there's a group called the Incentive Research Foundation that I actually was one of the, original founders of. I'm very proud of that. And they've grown a long way since I was there. And they do terrific research. And of course, any outreach stuff we'll be doing, we'll of course be sharing that great research they do. Tyrone, thank you so much. And again, you feel free to peel off. I know you're very busy. I'll send you, but if you can stay on, great. Otherwise, I'll send you the what we learned. Thanks again, Tyrone. Now, last but not least, in terms of our talking to people from outside the industry, this is just Alan Schweier. I hope you're still there.
Here.
Great. Alan is a great example here because Alan and I have known each other since before he worked with the IRF. I think I recommended him to the IRF, and one of the best recommendations I've ever made. I think Alan has done an extraordinary job for the Incentive Research Foundation, which has done an extraordinary job for the industry. Alan, the reason I wanted to have you here so importantly, because I remember when I first introduced you to this field. Alan, by the way, has a background. He's an economist. He's worked for the government of Canada. He helped found the Human Capital Institute up there in New Hampshire. He has done, I think personally, he's one of the best researchers in human capital that I know, read several books. Alan, what was your response when I first told you that there was you may not remember, but I do, that there was an industry that focused on incentives about 15 years ago? Had you ever heard of it? Really?
No, I hadn't actually. Not. That was about 15 years ago, and I hadn't heard of the associations like the IRF. Hadn't heard of them, and didn't really ever even think about it being an industry. Obviously, motivation is something that we talk a lot about in engagement in human capital management, but no, not until I met you, Bruce.
Now, and I want to please be honest, I don't want to put you on the spot, but this is going to be a lie for a year at least. But you were a little skeptical when I first mentioned this whole concept of non-cash rewards and travel programs. I don't think anyone will shoot you if you admit, or if you recall, that you had some cautious feelings about it, didn't you? And even that in other words, these programs have to be properly designed or they can be a bust. Again, I don't want to put you on the spot about something 15 years ago that I remember and maybe you don't.
No, I think that's fair. We read books like Dan Pink's Drive. We study self-determination theory, Maslow, Harvard's 4-drive theory. And these are all, good theories of motivation, but they tend to focus on intrinsic motivation and leave off about half the picture. In fact, if you read Drive or you study self-determination theory, you see that there's an extrinsic component too. And I think the two play together. But to answer your question, before I started doing sort of diving into the research in this area, I was more, let's say, familiar with the ideas around, intrinsic motivation, what motivates a person to learn, what motivates a person to, engage in their work. So no, I think you're right. But since then, looking into the research, there's now a body of research going back 40 years that fairly consistently shows that extrinsic motivation drives intrinsic motivation, that non-cash rewards, we heard Darwin talking about compensation and the emphasis being on bonuses and salary, but the $90 billion part that you're talking about is another form of reward, and that is, not cash, instead of travel, merchandise, even gift cards and things like that. So, this 40 years of research shows that when that is well designed, when you use non-cash rewards in a good program, you can have a larger impact, more memorable and emotional impact than using cash. Of course, no one's going to work just for non-cash rewards, or very few people. You still need to pay people, competitive salaries and offer cash bonuses, like Darwin said. But when you want to make something memorable, it's almost like, receiving a gift from a friend of $100 of cash for your birthday or for Christmas, or receiving a well-chosen, thoughtful gift that shows they know something about you. And there's an emotional difference between those two things. And I think the same thing works, in the workplace.
Well, the other thing that you're a great example of, again, and forgive me for my elephant-like memory, I had worked back in the 90s with the American Productivity Quality Center on the master measurement model, which I think you're very familiar with, which I think is one of the greatest unused tools in our industry that I'm going to make sure it gets used if I can. But when they first were introduced to this, it was like you, Alan, they had never heard of it and they were quite skeptical. And then I invited them because, again, they thought it was bribery. They thought it was manipulation. They thought it was like a short-term high, and that it could create negative behaviors. They were concerned. Well, anyway, I brought them on an education program in Amsterdam. And I got to tell you, we were at the reception at a castle and the beer was flowing. And they came, Don McAdams and Carl Thor, who are legends in the productivity area, by the way, both retired now. They came over to me with mugs full of beer and they were saying, "Now I get it." They were having an extraordinary experience. There was an energy and they were never going to forget this experience. So and I think you went through that same epiphany too when you went on your first IRF event. You went, holy cow, just any final thoughts on messaging? If we're going to get to this end user, to the academic world, what do you, because you're the IRF's chief academic advisor, if I recall, what do you think that message has to be?
Yeah, we're small, right? We're trying to do outreach. It's understandable, disappointing that even in compensation, I can understand marketing to a degree, that we haven't been able to get our message across to compensation experts like Darwin is a failure. We need to work on that messaging. I know, Bruce, your question is bigger. I don't know what the answer is to making this a marketing campaign. I'm not a marketing person, but I do think we've had articles in World at Work, which is, the place where, total compensation people sometimes go. Like I say, there's a body of academic research stretching back at least 40 years that talks about the type of rewards and recognition we're talking about today, the tangible non-cash. And yet it takes a lot more, it seems, to get the message out there. And, Bruce, I don't know. I'm not a marketing person, but I think the more we can get our message out into the mainstream media, maybe at this point, the better we'll get at breaking through at least to HR and to compensation, if not eventually to other parts of the business.
Well, to the credit to the industry, the one thing that it did do, and I was there to see it happen, is it created the IRF, because all of the research that we need already exists. You guys have done, between that and some other industry efforts, the work of Ed Friedman and others. We have the work. So thank you so much, Alan, for your work and the work of everybody at the IRF. We're now going to move to the industry and to get a perspective from people in our industry. And I'd like to start with Sandra Daniels. If she's still there, she's CEO and founder of Firelight. And again, you will never know it, but she's been in the industry for a couple of years. And so, Sandy, you were at the IRF. I think you were a president 20 years ago or something like that. I'd love to get your perspective on this. You've been really outspoken. We've been talking about getting this industry known. Where do you think the status is of that? And do you think it's even worth the effort, or should we give up?
Well, of course, I don't think we should give up, but yeah, I was the chairperson of the board, and president is actually a paid position in IRF, just to make that clarification. And I think it was somewhere around 5 or 6 years ago, I kind of rolled off as past past chair, but I was involved actually way back about 15 or so years ago when nobody even knew what the IRF was. So one of the big motivations we had while I was on the board was trying to get the world to know who we were, just for starters, and that there was all this free research available for the asking. I also, prior to that, worked in an insurance company and have a background in both marketing and finance. And to Darwin's point about the compensation, I used to work with our sales division about the mix of, compensation between bonus and, what we called at risk and not at risk income. But the recognition reward piece was not ever even part of that discussion. And I don't know that we've gotten very far from listening to Darwin and others like Merrill that really still don't know about this industry. I guess I kind of think about it like LEED certification for, for buildings. We need to have something that makes it recognizable what it is we do. And I think one of the biggest challenges we have in our company is when people ask what we do, it's this long 2-paragraph, we can't, we help people engage because we do this. It's very hard to describe what it is we do. But once, as to your point, Bruce, once you get somebody on a trip, they go, oh, I get it. I feel special. I feel valued. I feel engaged. I get it. But to get that feeling across to people before they actually experience it is a big challenge.
Okay, Sandy, but do you realize there's a big idea there? This answers your question, Lincoln, of what we're trying to accomplish today. We're getting great information today from all of you. We need to show people that they're already experiencing this. This is part of our life, right? Everybody has won a trip or redeemed loyalty points. Everybody has gotten upgraded, right? What people don't understand, there's a science behind that. It's not just whimsical. So Sandy, thank you. Once people taste what we do, right, Sandy? So aren't you saying maybe we need a sampling program of some kind? I'm not even kidding.
Yeah. I'll just share one quick story. I had a client for years and they got bought up by another big company, and the new CEO came in and said, there's no way we're going to spend money on this expensive trip for everybody. This is just a lot of money we don't need to spend. I convinced him to come to the incentive program for the first 2 days. By the time he walked out of there, he said, we have to do this. And it's because he experienced all of these people getting motivated and excited and engaged about this new company they were trying to manage and change. And what a better way than to get these people together physically and make them feel valued. So
Sandy, it seems to me, first off, what's come out of what you say, yes, we shouldn't give up. But we've got to find a simple message. And you didn't mean to say it, but maybe a sampling approach is something we need to think about. Because Dean, I'm now going to turn it. Thank you so much, Sandy, for being with us today. And again, feel free to hang in or chime, go out if you have to, but we'll send you the full tape. Dean, you were a corporate buyer for many years. Now, and again, I don't want to put you on the spot. Now you're head of sales. So obviously to what extent though, just kind of give us your history and why did your company run these programs? And even did you know about all the research that was available out there? And did anybody even care?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I basically
By the way, Dean Mutter is Vice President of Sales for Lux Incentives. I'm sorry, I forgot to introduce you. Go ahead, Dean.
Don't worry. Yeah, I came to it through osmosis. I was running a region and I heard another region was doing something and doing trips. And I had done trips in other businesses I was in. I came from the communication side. So I was in radio and television and cable. And so when I was in radio, we did incentive trips. So that was my first taste. But I just figured somebody knew somebody and they had a travel agent or someone and they bought out a cruise ship and all the markets got trips to go on this particular thing. But what I discovered was that the other markets, as I watched other people use these, they were basically it was malpractice of incentives because they would not measure them right. They wouldn't incent people properly and they would just do it wrong. And in some cases it failed, quote, failed because they didn't have clear expectations of what they wanted to see. With any kind of process, you got to have a plan, you got to be able to measure it, and then modify it as you go along, or at least for the following year, change it. So to answer your basic question, Bruce, no, I didn't realize there was an organization that did this. You know, we were members of the TVB, the CAB, the RAB, and all the other, you know, the advertisers associations. But I had no idea there was an organization like this out there. And so what I've come to learn is that it's really important. And like Sandy said, we just had a situation with a client recently that we just got him to finally have us work with them on one of their incentive trips. And it was a sales meeting / incentive. And we got him to do it, but finally the president showed up of the company. And after the second day, like Sandy said, he was like, oh my God, this is better than anything we've ever done before. This is amazing. We got to use these guys again. That's the good news. The bad news is people come and go. And if this guy disappears, when we go to renew it next year, the new guy's going to come in thinking he's got the better mousetrap and the smarter plan. And, you know, the budget gets cut if we can't document what growth they had. So an ROI has always been a big factor for me in buying and using these trips. I had to have an ROI of anywhere from 4 to 9. So if I spent 10,000, I better make 90,000 or $100,000. And I did every time. And so I could look someone in the eye and say, this stuff works. I did it. I know it works.
Now, that's a great segue. Thank you, Dean. So obviously, from just summing up what you're saying, the message has to focus, it works, right? It has to focus on it works. And you have to have you have to design the program properly, because as you said, if you do it wrong, it can be a disaster, right?
Yeah.
Now, Paul Hebert, the reason I wanted to have him in, he's been an innovator in this industry as much as anybody I know. He was talking about program design long before most people. And so I feel sorry for you, Paul, because really, I think most companies have not taken program design seriously. Paul, besides the fact that most people have never heard of this industry, isn't the dirty secret of this industry that the end user is part of the problem? That they, just as Dean said, they don't know what they're doing. They come up with some cockamamie idea and they say, hey, I'm going to run this program. They don't know what they do, and they mess it all up. What's your thought about that?
I mean, yes, there's none of us on this call have ever had the situation where a client was running the perfect program that they designed themselves, right? 90% of the people that end up designing their own programs, if they're clients, like you're saying, the end user, it's probably because they were a salesperson at one time. They went to Hawaii, that made them feel good. Their wife or husband was happy, or their partner. So that's what they're going to do when they get into the job as the leader, right? Because I liked Hawaii, everybody will like Hawaii. So you run into the problem where what I like and what worked for me 10 years ago is what I'm comfortable with, and that's what I'm going to spin out. And it's just a function of not having access to or knowing about the information we've been talking about today, you know, the whole ROI side of the equation. I do think it's a little bit of a messy conversation. If you think about it, we didn't even establish at the beginning of this call, are we talking about employees? Are we talking about channel? Are we talking about sales incentives for salespeople inside a field organization? Are we talking about individual performance goals for an employee that works in a call center? I mean, at the end of the day, we don't sell a thing. We sell something that enables 100 things. So think of it like we're the computer of the behavior change world. We can be trips, we can be merchandise, we can be cash when it makes sense to be cash. So having somebody know what a perfect program looks like, everybody thinks they do, but then again, there isn't one. Does that make sense?
Well, let me ask you this, though, and this will be a good segue for some of our other speaker series we wrap up. And this really said what Dean said. Companies aren't measuring these programs most of the time. Alan is peeled off now, but I'm sure he will agree that most programs do not measure these programs and do not take program design seriously.
Yeah, and I don't disagree that we don't measure them, but I don't think a lot of people care to measure them. And here's the reason I think that. If it's a employee-based program, what's the ROI on a phone system, right? Nobody does an ROI on their telephone, but yet they're going to do it on their employee engagement platform. Employee engagement is as critical as a phone, and that's axiomatic anymore. And from a sales perspective, especially channel programs, these are in a lot of cases, they're reactionary. In other words, I can't stop it because if I do, my competitor wins because I know they work. I just don't know to the degree, right? Is it the old Wanamaker thing, right? 50% is wasted, but I just don't know which 50%.
Yeah.
Same thing with incentives, right? But at the end of the day, a lot of them are reactionary and you just have to do it in order to be competitive. And employee engagement, that just should be axiomatic. But, that's my opinion. And I
Well,
didn't
thank
stay
you,
at
Paul,
I didn't
and,
stay at a Holiday Inn.
well, that's why we had you, for your opinion. So thank you very much. So taking this, Lincoln, I don't see you on my screen. I assume you're there. ROI, your company focuses HMI performance incentives. As I understand it, focuses channel and sales. Are you seeing, my hypothesis is that there was not a lot of focus on program design in the past. A lot of it was just as Paul said. They had to do it. Their competition did it. The guys or ladies liked it. The president came with her husband and he liked it, blah, blah, blah. Are you seeing more focus on ROI and program design now?
I think so. And I think that Paul said it really well. Just focusing exclusively on ROI can be kind of dangerous if that's your only business case for implementing an engagement program or a sales incentive program. Now, we do know that it drives business results, and those business results will either directly or indirectly have some kind of positive return. But anyhow, just to exclusively have it on a spreadsheet as the only business driver is oftentimes dangerous, especially when we're talking to a CFO and making those decisions. But anyhow, to answer your question, Bruce, I do feel that the industry or the market really does need to be educated continually on the importance of what this industry brings and the benefits that it can offer an organization. I think the IRF is doing a fabulous job of it. I think the momentum is there. I think that the more science, the more content, the more information that the market can kind of consume to understand the benefits of what we do, all ships will rise. Now, the IRF is just one voice, and I think that today the question is what else could we be doing to help support the IRF or any, your organizations, Bruce, or the IMA, ANA might be also another really key vehicle and association to kind of evangelize the benefits that corporate America would benefit from engaging with this industry.
And how about academics? What about getting our students? What about, I know we've talked about that in the past, but if we could develop a program to educate professors at different business schools, would that be an endeavor worthwhile, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a big hurdle for us, but in an ideal state, that would be great. I have my MBA. I did my undergrad in psychology. So, I know, that in, a lot of business courses, they do have kind of a lot of behavioral economics chapters that kind of introduce you to, these principles. But it typically is just that. It's typically just a couple of chapters, and I don't want to say glossed over, but it doesn't have a huge emphasis on it. So it would be nice to kind of see, business programs or psychology oriented, academics spend a little bit more time on the science of, designing effective engagement programs or recognition programs or incentive programs. So
by the way,
again, it's there, it's just not as disciplined.
I didn't realize you're an MBA. Did you learn about this in your MBA program? Did you know?
Yeah, there's behavioral science or, behavioral management chapters, in operations. So these things were introduced to me at that point in time that I had familiarity with. But
yeah, but
like I said,
but not the industry though. But you
not
didn't
on the industry. No, it was on some of the principles, but it didn't really necessarily bring in that there was a whole, even a career path, that you could even pursue in that. So it certainly wasn't, promoted or presented or, in that fashion.
So I'm hearing from you that, yeah, if we could come up with some sort of, and I say we, I think everybody agrees, this has to be a collective effort.
Sure.
And anything, our publications, ESM and RRN, we cover the IRF, we cover IMA, we cover site, we cover all sorts of World at Work, the World Economic Forum. It's everybody. No one can own this industry. So I think your point is we have to work together. We have to focus on the value we add, and if the ROI isn't necessarily financial, the ROI might be emotional connection, retention, long-term. That we have to look broader than just dollars and cents. So thank you very much, Lincoln, for participating. Mike, Mike is a great example. Mike May, he is president and principal, or one of the principals of Bright Spot Incentives and Events. They're a Dallas-based meetings and incentive travel company. I think they also do other non-cash rewards. But Mike, I wanted him on because tell us a little bit how you got introduced to this business, Mike. Had you ever heard of it I think it was part of a career self-discovery process that you stumbled into it. Could you quickly tell us?
Yeah. Yes, you're right. No, I hadn't. When I was in my late 30s, I was a vice president of a division of a public company in the construction trade. And, if we had a sales kickoff meeting, we appointed the marketing manager. I didn't know that there were meeting planners. When we did customer trips, a salesperson coordinated that. I didn't know there were incentive travel companies. And if we did a sales contest, we just managed it internally with Excel and spreadsheets. But I reached a point where I wasn't enjoying working with that company. And it turns out they weren't enjoying me working with them either. And where I didn't have the courage to make a change, they did have the courage to make a change. And, but I used that career transition as a halftime in my life to explore other businesses. And I was introduced to a company in this IRR space. And I fell in love with the fact that it was a small business working with very large companies that did things with excellence. But, I think the reason that so many companies that I hadn't heard of it and so many people don't is Paul used the word messy earlier, and I would use the word fragmentation. We work in a very, very fragmented industry, and it's both fragmented in audience and fragmented in program type. So on the audience side, a sales operations exec who functions as the administrative arm for the VP of sales, he may know that there are companies that manage sales contests or manage President's Club trips. So, he would be aware of those program types, but then the sales reps that attend, they probably don't know that this industry exists. If you go over to marketing, where we talked about things like channel marketing or field marketing, product marketing that may manage certain sales contests, maybe they know about a piece, or HR may know about recognition, but not so much about sales incentives. So when I think about the audience being very fragmented, and then the types of programs from travel to merchandise to gift cards or experiences, it's so fragmented that therefore it makes it very difficult to paint a target on the person that we're pursuing and create a targeted marketing campaign.
Now, Mike, do you think it's impossible? Do you think it shouldn't even be tried?
No, I don't know if it's impossible, but it's a tall hill to climb. I think if we targeted certain types of buyers or certain program types, it may be a little bit more manageable to bite off and chew. But it's a big challenge to break through the clutter.
Oh, absolutely.
Which is why we're talking about it.
Well, and Meryl said something at the very beginning, Meryl Moss, the PR and marketing expert that we had here earlier.
Mm-hmm.
She made the point about the message. And I put up at the very beginning something very simple. What do we all have in common? People. So really what we are talking about is a Got People campaign, right? It's that simple. Whether that's legal, whether we could use that, we'll have a company like Meryl help us with that, or we'll see. But my point is that it's got to be very simple. And what unites everybody in this industry is people. Meryl.
Sorry, as I'm hearing this and learning more about this industry in this particular way, this has been very, very helpful, Bruce. So thank you for inviting me. Is that we are at a pivotal point right now with people. never been like this before. The US Labor Department put out their numbers on productivity, and we're down at the lowest point since 1947, right? Did we talk about that the other day? So with everybody everywhere, and with the great resignation and people in between working remotely, not seeing each other, being here, being there, not engaging, there's a real opportunity for this industry right now to make a big push to show companies what they really have to do. And I mean, with these experts everywhere who have been in this business forever, I mean, this is the time. The timing couldn't be better.
We say that every recession.
Well, it's not even the recession. It's post-COVID. This is not the same as it's ever been. This is not recession. This is people working remotely. This is the separateness of the workforce, where they don't have connections with people. And we bang up against this all day long. Is it good enough that people are working remotely? Do they get more done? Where's the creativity? Can they, where's the humanness? How important is that? I think we cannot disagree that that's a very important component for work. And if you're not going to get it at the office, well, what a great opportunity to put together programs where you have retreats and you have rewards and you have all these incentives that people will gather. I think there's a whole new life around this industry that you've never had an opportunity to even think about before because of COVID.
Well, Meryl, to your point, the brand of this industry, I was saying at the beginning of this session, maybe even offline, the brand stinks. It's a bad brand. I'll be blunt. I've tried, I can't say on camera who I brought this opportunity to, other people, didn't even return my phone call. It's trinkets and trash, trips and prizes, bribery. Really, a lot of people don't get that this is actually, and until you're in it, that if you do these programs properly, they have a tremendous impact on a company's brand. Now, speaking of brands, yeah.
One more real quick thought.
Go ahead.
To dovetail what Meryl said. Yes, I think all the CEOs right now, their hot topic is talent retention and talent engagement. And connecting the dots to, we've talked about IRF, and Alan Schweier would tell us many recent IRF studies say that ROI is not the #1 motivator, it's soft benefits. Soft benefits defined as things like engagement, recognition, team building, networking. So I do concur that there is an opportunity now that people are looking for talent retention, talent engagement solutions.
We just can't have it be bright, shiny objects. We just can't go down that road. Go ahead, Meryl.
I'm sorry. As an employer myself, we've gotten management and training is, most managers only get 4 hours of training in their whole career. Okay, so they don't really know what to do. We all know now that you have to be complimentary. You want to tell people they're doing a good job more than we ever have before. Would we agree, right? You have to be engaged that way. But you know what? You have to go the next step. And I think what you're talking about, what you're all discussing here, is the next step. How do you put your kind of money where your mouth is, in a way, as a company, to really show people it's more than just doing a great job and maybe you get a few bucks or a bonus, whatever. You have to go to the next step, have a whole program that they can really engage with and feel good about. And just like the examples that you were all talking about, that when you did a retreat or you were a part of it, some company said no until they were part of something. That's, I think, the next phase.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Well, thank you. And Sandra, you can speak, and then I got to leave time for our last panelist. Go ahead.
I just want to quickly point everyone to an article that was in the New York Times this morning, I believe, and it's about how people are accepting jobs and they're not even showing up for the first day. They're moving to the next. So there's a real classic example of people not being at all engaged with who they're just chasing dollars. I think somebody said that earlier. Just an article I think you should read.
Well, the IRF, Alan, wrote a report recently that companies should be using their non-cash incentive rewards as recruitment tools. That, hey, if you're a top performer here, you might see the world and have experiences you never dreamed of. And speaking of experiences, I hope we haven't lost Corey Wolf of Links Unlimited. Corey, you still there? I hope. Because Links Unlimited is all about brands. And what companies don't realize is that brands are a powerful motivator and they tell a story. Apple tells a different story than Microsoft. And there's an entire industry of experts that help people. If you're doing a consumer promotion, which brand you're linking into is going to have a real impact. So the issue with you, Corey, again, how many people, you have this whole kitting department where you can do customization, personalization, all the research that the IRF has done shows that the more you customize and personalize, and Alan made reference to that, the difference between $100 or knowing that Sandy loves fly fishing, and that where she really would love a top fly fishing kit and maybe a weekend getaway up in the Dells fly fishing. I'm just making it up here. I'm sure Sandy loves fly fishing, but that's what the research shows. And yet, Corey, how many of your clients are willing to spend that extra money to really make that? Now, I believe HMI coincidentally is a client, but how many clients are willing to really use your kitting and capabilities to really make the reward experience memorable?
Well, I think ultimately a lot more, and COVID has really caused that to happen. As we talked about, more people working remotely. So the ability to want to engage your employee with something to keep them, either a brand in front of them, let them know that they're valuable, give them a quick note, something that arrives at their doorstep, is something that is in more need than I've ever seen in the 15 years I've been in the industry. So that is definitely coming to light through the pandemic. Ultimately, for us, and you mentioned HMI, we work through resellers, and so our job with what we're supposed to do with the brands that we offer is offer services around those brands, because anybody can go get a brand anywhere. Anybody can go out to retail if they want. They can try to source it through a wholesaler. It just depends on what they want to do. But when we can offer things around those brands, kitting, fulfillment, drop shipping, decorating it, whatever it might be, where that corporation who is down there is saying, hey, this is how I want to use this product, or this is what I was thinking, or the reseller taking it down to the corporation saying, well, what about this? We want to be there to deliver those services and to our resellers so they can go and sell that to their corporate customers.
Now, your customization and personalization division, I know your president, Scott, has made a big commitment in that. Has that paid off? Is that business growing, or do more companies appreciate the reward experience that the research shows makes a difference?
Yeah, I think ultimately it's all about need. And so we want to be able to, when someone says, I need to take that product and I want to do this with it, we want to be able to then help manage that process and not leave them hanging out to dry. Because in so many instances in the past, what we found out was that people would buy product and then if a corporation wanted a logo on it, well, where do I go put the logo on it? How do I manage that? How do I do that? I need to put a letter that thanks that certain intended target. How do I get that into the box? Where do I get, so basically just answering all of those questions that give them the tools that they have and the confidence to go into a corporation and say, yep, HR, I can do it that way. Yep, sales, I can do it this way. The assistant to the president. Yeah, you need whatever, I can go find it. So those people need to understand that they have a source inside their corporation that can be that one entity for all of those purposes. And it's not just me, there's other companies like us that are out there, but hey, I'm the source for all of you guys inside the corporation, not just for marketing, not just for HR, and really educate them on what, the sourcing and the management of product that they can deliver.
So if clients knew, it would probably be good for Links if more clients knew about companies like Lincoln's, wouldn't it? Or like any of these incentive, like Sandy's company or Mike May's. It would be, because I would imagine when you go to a party, you don't even bother telling them what Links does unless they're in your business, right? We're a wholesaler, major wholesaler, right? Would it help our industry if everybody knew that if you're going to do this right, you call an expert?
Yeah, and I think ultimately, again, our business model is through a reseller network.
Right.
So we need to make sure our job is that to get to that reseller network, that they understand what they have at their disposal, because in a sense, they're our sales staff. They're the ones that are actually in the corporations. I couldn't hire enough people to cover it. So I have to have like a distribution network, if you will, or reseller network to get that message across. And that's really what we're trying to do as you know, our goal with our, you know, salespeople and what we do out in the marketplace.
Is to support the reseller with the information they need and the tools they need. Well, folks, this has accomplished my personal goals here. The input that we've gotten from all of you has been invaluable. And I want to leave you with some interesting statistics.
Hey, Bruce, I think that
Oh.
Bruce, we missed Jeff Dalton. Jeff. is
Oh
on.
my gosh, thank
Yeah.
heavens, Jeff. I'm so sorry. Jeff, and you have more history here than anyway. Thank you so much, Lincoln. Oh, Jeff. You were too kind. I thought I missed you here. Jeff, you've been in the industry longer than anybody at this table here. You've been at it since 1998. You developed the first technology in the industry. Does this sound like a broken record? Have you heard this story before, Jeff?
Yes, we have, Bruce. Really from the very beginning, it's been all about resellers. To support what Corey was talking about. And, you know, from our perspective, the reseller has always been our gateway into the market. And as far as, you know, thinking about some of the other things you said about how well we're perceived in the marketplace, I did a quick search on the SHRM show, which is coming up. And there's actually going to be 80 exhibitors who are in the rewards and recognitions business, which I thought was pretty high. So what it shows me is that, and this is kind of what we talked about, you know, there's a certain group of companies that are at a certain level that they know what's going on. They're inundated with calls. They know who OC Tanner is. They're seeing television commercials now on sports shows for what the Irish company that has made such
Humans.
Yeah, I saw a television commercial on a Yankee game, I think, recently from them.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so
I saw that as well on basketball or hockey game.
is that what? Okay, yeah. So I'm like, wow. So I'm like, when I think of that, I look at the high end, and I don't even want to think about it or even talk about it, because I never will go anywhere near it. Who's ever running the employee recognition program for Walmart? You know, God bless them, God help them. My software could never go near something of that scale. We wouldn't want to do it. So you take that group out of it, and then you come down to the meat, where we always talk about the mid-sized markets, and they're harder than ever to get into right now. I mean, we worked with a reseller on a program, and the timing was terrible because we did it in the middle of COVID. And it failed so miserably. And the effort was to try to talk to mid-sized companies. They spent money on good lists to find people within technology companies who were suspects for the, and again, talking about employee programs. And it failed miserably, which taught us also that came us back to full circle, that the reseller market, where we have to constantly go, is to try to find more resellers, and they typically come from the promotional product industry.
So that means our brand the industry's brand is being brought to the end user by promotional products distributors. And I'm not against that, but you know, that does, you know, are those guys and ladies the best avenue for this brand?
Well, yes and no. Yes, because sometimes they can be so, and I'll speak about healthcare right now for a minute in hospitals. I mean, these guys are entrenched in a big hospital. Yeah. And when HR says, "Hey, I gotta run this program. Can you do it?" And they may be talking to somebody like a Halo or a Taylor or one of the big guys, and it's like, "Hell yes, I can do it." And it's all about the award. It doesn't. The programs don't have to make sense. There is no what you talk about checks and balances to see whether these programs make sense. Now it's believe it or not, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, 5 year awards. Somebody actually has the audacity to offer a $5 award. And no matter how hard I tried to tell them not to do it, they did it anyway. I said, give them the damn hat. But be that as it may, I'm getting started on this now. In that business, the promotional products guy is your conduit, and whether we like it or not. And we can't. One of the things we've done, and as Bruce, as you know, the industry has been working on this for years to try to get more promo guys to sell incentives. And we tried to tell them that they need to be safety program experts, or that they need to be incentive programs experts. And I come back full circle that, you know, their customer has, if they're running a safety program for one of the big guys, they got 50 people in that company who have the word safety on their business card, and they don't need a promotional products distributor to tell them how to run a safety program. So I try to tell my guys, get away from that. You don't need to, you have to understand what they're doing, but you got to sell what you do best. Deliver product, customizations, working with companies like Corey's who can do everything that they need to do. The problem is that there's just not enough of them out there. And I just think the industry has done a poor job of getting more of these guys, because there's a finite number. There's not a lot of more companies out there like Sandy's or Lincoln's. You know, we all know how many incentive companies out there. There's not a bunch more coming out. They're out there, but there's 1,000 promotional products distributors out there right now that need to learn our story. And
yeah, well, folks, well, Jeff's
that's it. Yeah,
not
that's
least, I'm so sorry to have almost cut you out, and thank you, Lincoln. But I'm going to leave with this great point that you've made. Just folks, statistically, there are according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, there are 219,000 companies out there with sales of over $10 million, which means employees, depending on the type of company, with 100 or more employees. 219,000. There are not even 80 incentive and recognition companies in the United States. Not even. There are no more than 30 employee engagement technologies. Now, in CRM, customer relationship management, there are 500 different CRM companies, and there are about 8,000 integrators of CRM in the United States. So what we see here, that helps explain why no one's ever heard of this industry. Not only is there no Got Milk campaign, but the few companies that they are all focusing on the top 1,000 companies. And there are no more. I'm telling you, if there are 80 incentive and recognition companies, I think that's high. And I said there are 8,000 advertising and marketing agencies and a similar amount of CRM implementers. So this is not a mature industry, folks. This industry was born with Incentive Magazine in 1902, no joke, and it's not in print anymore, I don't think, but they're still around. And yet no one's ever heard of this industry. There's only 80 companies in it. And about 90% of it moves through retail. If you add up the $45 billion that this industry does, you can only find about $6 billion moving through the Halos, the Meritzes, the Achievers, the Workhumans, the Jeffs of the world, the Coreys of the world. So where's the rest of that going? It's people coming up with their own programs, their own crazy schemes, and sending somebody down to retail or getting a retail travel agent without ever knowing there's an industry. So there's a big opportunity here, folks. Whether we as an industry can accomplish it, I don't know. But because of you, we're going to try. So thanks again, everybody, for attending. And we'll be sure to share this with everybody.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thanks, Bruce. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Bruce.
Again.